The concept of critical multiculturalism asks us to investigate whether our multiculturalism is well-meaning but poorly executed, or whether it's something that seeks real social justice. Kubota calls the first one liberal multiculturalism. It's the type of thinking that motivates kind-hearted teachers to celebrate cultural diversity, but it keeps all of the activities and discussions at the very peak of the cultural iceberg. The learner's culture is essentialized and static. As you dig deeper into liberal multiculturalism, you find a tendency to be colorblind, where teachers try to treat every person as if they're equal to each other. This dangerous assumption that everyone is equal is what leads to unjust comparisons. Instead of recognizing and facing the existing imbalances of power, every person is told they could just be successful if they just work harder and apply themselves. In place of liberal multiculturalism, Kubota calls for critical multiculturalism. Instead of pretending cultural and racial differences don't exist, critical multiculturalism shines a light on the differences in hopes of deconstructing the inequalities that are within. Critical multiculturalism recognizes the privilege afforded to some and the daily injustices that some other people face every day, or, as Penny Cook says, the racisms of everyday life. Penny Cook calls the inherent injustice in our system an issue of self and other, where the self is given power as civilized, rational, logical, superior, and the other is idealized and stigmatized as inferior. Pennycook links this othering to the colonialism inherent in English language teaching. He uses a classic example involving the book Robinson Crusoe, asking why Crusoe undertook to teach Friday the English language in the first place. As a visitor to the land, why didn't Crusoe endeavor to learn Friday's language? Critical multiculturalism also interrogates the way we represent English language learners. Harglaw studied how ELL teachers represent their students. The essentialized labels that they use, like hardworking, motivated, driven, and that they are overcomers, they serve to construct the learners' identities. And while at first this mythical identity was working for the learners, eventually Harglaw saw that it contributed to the students' own resistance in their college-level classes. Harglaw described in detail the way the system othered the learners by repeatedly assigning topics about your culture, your country, your language, by describing the learners' language abilities using a deficit model, and by framing the students as cultural novices needing a caregiver, and by being blind to the different levels of social capital present in the class. So my question for you is this: what kind of multiculturalism is at play in your learning environment? And practically, what would need to happen to see more critical multiculturalism in your work setting?